Buckle up, everyone, because today we're diving into a story that's wilder than any pirate adventure you've ever heard of.
Sounds exciting.
It is. It's the story of Paul's journey to Rome, as told in Acts 27.1 for 4:4.
Oh, wow. So this isn't Paul's missionary journey. This is something else entirely.
You got it. He's actually a prisoner on this trip, and let me tell you, it does not go smoothly.
Prisoner. So much for a relaxing cruise.
Right. Talk about a vacation gone wrong.
So he's headed to Rome for trial, but what kind of trouble did he get into?
We'll get to that, but first let's set the scene.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's the 1st century AD, and Paul is under Roman guard.
Makes sense they wouldn't want him running off.
Right. So they set sail, and we're introduced to all these different ships and ports with exotic names, like Adramyttium, Sidon, Myra.
Wow, those names sound straight out of a history book.
They are. It's a reminder of how interconnected.
You know what's striking to me? Even though Paul is a prisoner, there's this detail in Sidon where he's allowed to visit friends.
I know, right? The centurion Julius actually shows him some kindness. Why do you think that is?
It's interesting, isn't it? It suggests that Julius isn't just some heartless Roman officer.
Maybe he saw something in Paul, recognized his humanity even in this difficult situation.
Or maybe he was just following orders, who knows?
No.
But it definitely adds another layer to their relationship.
It makes you wonder what Julius really thought of Paul. Was he skeptical? Sympathetic?
We'll see how their relationship develops as the story unfolds, but for now, the journey continues.
And that's where things start to get a whole lot rougher.
Here comes the trouble.
Verse 9 mentions this fast that had already passed, making sailing dangerous.
The fast? What's that all about?
It refers to the Jewish Day of Atonement.
Ah, okay, a time of repentance and reflection.
Exactly. And sailing after this day, especially in the Mediterranean, was considered super risky.
Why is that?
Because the winter storms were brewing. They were basically sailing into hurricane season.
Yikes. Talk about bad timing.
Right. And as if on cue, Paul, sensing danger, warns the crew.
He tries to tell them to turn back.
Basically. He tells them straight up, this voyage could be disastrous, not just for the cargo, but for their lives.
I bet they weren't too happy to hear that.
Yeah, talk about a buzzkill at sea.
So what do?
Sadly, they don't heed his warning. The centurion trusts the ship's captain and owner more than this prisoner, claiming divine insight.
Classic case of don't tell me what to do.
Exactly. They thought they knew better.
And I'm guessing they regretted that decision pretty quickly.
You bet, because what happens next is a full-blown tempest. The text uses vivid language. Tempestuous wind, exceedingly tossed, no small tempest.
Wow, this isn't just a little rough seas. This is a serious storm.
This is an epic storm. We're talking massive waves, winds, howling days turn into nights they can't even see the sun or stars.
Can you imagine being stuck in that chaos? It must have been terrifying.
Absolutely. And they're stuck in this storm for days, just being tossed around like a toy boat in a bathtub.
I'd be seasick for sure.
You and me both. And at this point, all hope seems lost.
They must have thought this was the end.
Verse 20 paints a bleak picture, it says.
Eh.
All hope that we should be saved was then taken away.
Talk about a desperate situation. It's like something straight out of a movie.
It is. They're completely at the mercy of the elements facing what seems like certain doom.
So what happens next? Do they manage to ride out the storm, or?
Well, that's where we'll leave it for now. But let's just say things are about to take a very interesting turn. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll find out what happens next in this epic tale of survival and faith on the high seas.
Can't wait to hear it. All right, so last time we left, Paul and all those passengers in the middle of a crazy shipwreck.
Yeah, talk about a cliffhanger. But remember, everyone actually survives the shipwreck.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's a miracle. But where do they end up?
They're washed ashore on this mysterious island, safe, but definitely not in paradise.
So no fruity drinks and beach umbrellas.
Not quite. They're wet, exhausted, and probably pretty shaken up after that whole ordeal.
I can only imagine. So they're stranded on this island, but do they even know where they are?
Nope. The text says they knew not the land.
Wow, talk about being lost. That's got to be a scary feeling.
Right. It's like waking up in a foreign country with no map, no phone, no nothing.
I'd be freaking out. So what do they do?
Well, first they got to deal with the basics, like finding shelter and warmth. You know, survival stuff.
Makes sense. So how do the islanders react to this sudden group of shipwrecked strangers showing up?
Surprisingly, they show remarkable kindness.
Really? I think they'd be suspicious or even hostile.
You'd think so, right? The text even calls them barbarous people.
Barbarous? That doesn't sound very welcoming.
It's a reflection of the Roman perspective. Anyone outside their empire was considered uncivilized.
Oh, okay, so it's more about cultural differences than actual behavior.
Exactly. Because despite that label, the islanders actually build a fire to warm the survivors, offer them food and shelter. It's a beautiful example of human compassion.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
even in this crazy situation, kindness prevails.
It really does. But this moment of peace doesn't last long because guess what happens next?
Don't tell me another storm hits.
Nope, even worse. A snake bite.
Oh no. Who gets bitten?
Paul. He's gathering wood for the fire, and suddenly this venomous viper latches onto his hand.
Ouch. That's gotta hurt.
Right, and the islanders immediately think he must be a murderer cursed by the gods.
Wait, seriously? Just because he got bitten by a snake?
It's a cultural thing. To them, the snake bite was a sign of divine judgment.
Wow, talk about a bad first impression.
Right, but here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of freaking out, Paul just shakes off the viper into the fire.
He just shakes it off like it's nothing.
Yep, and guess what? Nothing happens to him. He's completely unharmed.
What? That's incredible. So he's not cursed after all.
Nope. The islanders are totally stunned. They were expecting him to die a painful death.
I bet they were questioning everything they thought they knew.
You can say that again. This whole snakebite incident completely changes their perception of Paul.
So they go from thinking he's a cursed murderer to
To thinking he's a god.
a god. Seriously, that's quite a jump.
I know, right? It's like a plot twist in a movie. They go from one extreme to the other.
I can only imagine the look on their faces.
It must have been priceless. They're probably thinking, who is this guy?
Talk about a change of heart. But does Paul play into this god label?
Not at all. He doesn't let it go to his head or exploit their awe.
That's good to hear. It shows his true character.
Exactly. He remains humble and compassionate. He even heals the sick, offers comfort, and shares his faith with them.
He really uses this opportunity to connect with them on a deeper level.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected events can open doors to amazing things.
Absolutely. So they go from fearing him to practically worshiping him, but he uses that influence for good.
Right. He doesn't seek power or recognition, just wants to help and share his message.
That's pretty inspiring.
It is. And there's another cool story about Publius, the chief man of the island.
What happens with him?
Well, his father's really sick with fever and dysentery.
Ah, that sounds serious.
It was a life-threatening illness back then.
Yeah.
But Paul goes to him, prays, lays his hands on him, and the man is healed.
Another miracle. It seems like Paul can't catch a break from the extraordinary.
Right. But this healing further solidified the islanders' belief that he was special.
They must have thought he was sent to them for a reason.
Exactly. And again, Paul doesn't take credit for it. He attributes the healing to God working through him.
What a powerful example of humility and faith.
It really is. So the snake bite, the healing, the hospitality. It seems like their time on the island, despite the initial hardships, was really transformative.
Absolutely, for both Paul and the Islanders.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of suffering and adversity, good things can happen.
So true. And it makes you wonder what awaits them on the rest of their journey. Last time we left Paul and his companions enjoying the unexpected hospitality of those Islanders.
Yeah, after that crazy shipwreck and snakebite, who knew they'd find such kindness?
It's a reminder that you never know what's around the corner.
So true. But remember, Rome is still their destination.
Right, they're on a mission even if it's not exactly a voluntary one.
So what happens next? Do they ever get off that island?
They do. After 3 months, winter comes to an end and they catch a ride on another ship.
Another ship. Where did this one come from?
It was an Alexandrian ship that had been wintering on the island.
Ah, so they were just waiting for the right time to set sail again?
Exactly. Timing is everything, as they say.
I bet they were relieved to finally be back on course.
I'm sure they were, especially after that last disastrous voyage.
Speaking of which, how does this second leg of the journey compare to the first?
Well, thankfully, no more epic storms or snake encounters. This time, it's smooth sailing.
That's a relief. So no more near-death experiences?
Not on this leg of the trip. They make stops at Syracuse, Regium, and Puteoli, all without any major incidents.
Sounds like a much more pleasant trip.
Definitely. It's almost like the calm after the storm.
But even though the journey is calmer, the weight of Paul's impending trial must have been heavy on his mind.
I'm sure it was. He's still a prisoner facing serious charges.
And Rome wasn't exactly known for its leniency when it came to those who challenged their authority.
True, but there's an interesting detail on Puteoli. They encounter a community of fellow Christians there.
Oh, wow. That must have been an incredible moment for Paul.
I imagine it was like a breath of fresh air finding familiar faces so far from home.
It's a reminder of the power of shared faith to create bonds that transcend distance and cultural barriers.
It also shows how quickly Christianity was spreading, even in those early days.
It's inspiring to think about these small pockets of believers scattered throughout the Roman Empire, offering support and encouragement to one another.
It's a testament to the strength and resilience of their faith.
So they spend a week with these fellow Christians, enjoying some respite before the final push to Rome.
A much-needed break before facing the unknown.
What happens when they finally arrive in Rome?
Well, verse 15 says, "And when we came to Rome, the centurion delivered the prisoners to the captain of the guard. But Paul was suffered to dwell by himself with a soldier that kept him."
Wait, so he's not thrown into some dark dungeon?
Not exactly. He's allowed to live in his own lodgings, while still under guard, of course.
Wow, that's surprising. You'd think they'd be more strict with someone considered a threat to Roman authority.
It is interesting, isn't it? Maybe the centurion put in a good word for him, or perhaps word had reached Rome about Paul's character and influence.
Or maybe they just didn't see him as a real threat anymore.
It's hard to say for sure, but it's clear that something had changed in their perception of him.
Maybe all those trials and tribulations, the shipwreck of the snake bite, the unwavering faith, it all made an impression.
It's a reminder that sometimes actions speak louder than words.
And even though he's technically a prisoner, Paul doesn't waste any time.
What does he do?
He starts engaging with the Jewish community in Rome, explaining his case and sharing his message of faith.
He's not letting captivity silence him.
Not at all. He's determined to make the most of his situation.
That's incredibly inspiring. So despite the shipwreck, the imprisonment, the uncertainty of his fate, Paul never gives up.
His journey to Rome was more than just a physical one. It was a testament to the power of faith and the resilience of the human spirit.
It's a story that still resonates with us today, centuries later.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Acts 27, what are some of the key takeaways we can carry with us?
For me, it's a reminder that even when we feel lost and adrift, there's always hope. We can find strength in our beliefs, in the kindness of others, and in the knowledge that even the toughest storms eventually pass.
It's also a reminder that the journey itself is just as important as the destination. It's in those unexpected detours, those moments of challenge and growth, that we truly discover who we are.
Well said. So as you navigate your own life's journey, remember the lessons of Acts 27. Embrace the unknown, find strength in your faith, and never underestimate the power of human connection.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the story of Paul's voyage to Rome. We hope you've gained new insights and perspectives and that you'll carry these lessons with you as you continue on your own unique journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.